Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, Jon Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. Jon Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and every week I get to talk to interesting CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, a range of companies from Netflix to Kinko's to YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, and many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And quick shout out to Jason Swank over at the Smart Agency Masterclass podcast. Go check it out. He does great stuff over there. He introduced our guest today. Jon Bast is his name. He's a co-founder, managing partner of OptiAuto. He also has T3 Marketing. They focus on working with car dealerships as a niche of all different dealerships. But he has a funny story of a very different niche that he started in, which we're going to ask him about in a second. He also is a fellow EO member, so Active in Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a wonderful organization for successful entrepreneurs worldwide. Go check it out. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25 Media, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. We specialize in B2B businesses with a high client lifetime value. So to learn more, get some inspiration and ideas, you can go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. All right, Jon. So I love this story. You graduate from college and you can't find a job. So naturally you say, I'll invent one for myself, start your own agency, helping other companies with digital marketing. And you have a Murphy bed company come to you. And first of all, for everyone listening to this who has no idea what a Murphy bed is, my grandparents had one, so I kind of know what it is. But what's a Murphy bed? And how do you start with a Murphy bed company?
Yeah, crazy story. So I'm serving tables. I have no marketing experience except for a marketing degree, and that really doesn't do much except for it's just more of a mindset. It doesn't teach you how to use Google Ads at all. And I am applying to job after job after job and couldn't get anything because, of course, I don't have any experience. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own marketing agency. So I created a few services that I could offer. Didn't know how to do any of it really. And then I created a website. My company name at the time was Magnetic Marketing. And nobody will probably believe me today, but I gained my first 2 clients through Craigslist. So I just posted my services on Craigslist. Wow. And that's where the Murphy bed client reached out to me. And for those who don't know, Murphy bed, and I didn't know at the time at all, I knew just as much about Murphy beds as I did paid search when I ended up selling this client initially. But a Murphy bed is a bed that essentially folds into a closet or some sort of wall and then comes out. So for us, we were in Florida, and a lot of people just have their second homes in Florida. And so most of their clients were people who would have their small condo, but they would want their grandkids to come over. And then so they would just open up the bookshelf and boom, there's a bed. And so kind of
revolutionary
what that was and how to run Google Ads to promote it. But we sold them on taking their newspaper budget and putting it to digital. And now 9 years later is my first client, and it's still a client today. So a really cool story of just kind of how, moving somebody's budget over to digital will make such a big impact.
And when you did that, were you worried at all? Like first client, I'm taking their money that they've spent on newspaper ads, that maybe it's worked, maybe it's not working by this point. Am I going to screw this up for this person? I'm just going to figure it out as I go along. What was your mindset like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I was more worried about the pitch because this is, me pitching something that I'm not super familiar with. And it was just a fake it till you make it. I'm still a pretty good presenter today. And so I feel like that worked out for me. And then I'm a great self-learner. And so I feel like I just kind of went with it and then continually optimized and built an account over a couple of years. And it was a really cool experience. It helped me land my first job too. again, mentioning that I got declined for a lot of jobs. One of those companies that I got declined for was called Haystak Digital Marketing. They were in Fort Myers, Florida. That was in Fort Myers, Florida. There's not too many companies to pick from. So when you apply to one, you're really, really hoping that you get that job. I had gotten declined because I didn't have enough experience. I reapplied 6 months later with magnetic marketing on my resume now, and they accepted me because now I'm an agency owner.
Right.
So it was a good little life hack that helped me get into a career.
Yeah. So you go into that, and then that's how you got into car dealerships, right?
Yeah. So this company just did paid search and display advertising for car dealerships. So that was a really cool niche. And I think that taught me the value of having a niche, having one service and one industry. And they grew like wildfire. They were probably a year or two old when I started working there. And just a few years later, they got purchased by Autotrader or Cox Automotive. So they have an incredible success story as well.
Yeah. And you actually eventually worked for Autotrader a few years later. Was it that connection coming back? Because you had a couple of other stops on your resume before that.
Yeah, so that was completely random, completely unconnected. So I had worked at this company, then I got recruited to come to an automotive group to help them bring marketing in-house, cut out as many vendors as possible, leverage the ones that we can't cut, and then bring in marketing. Then I got recruited to go up to Atlanta to work at a direct marketing company that just serviced car dealerships. And my mission there was to bring digital services to their agency and help them grow in that space. So then now they are still today a direct mail or direct marketing, digital marketing company. Then I decided I'm done with agencies forever. I'm not going to do this. This is too stressful. So then I started looking for other national opportunities. And then that's where I found Autotrader. Realized I am not a national advertising guy or a corporate guy. I came from all these jobs where I was wearing so many hats. I got to do whatever I wanted to do to move the needle. And here I had my one little space, and I felt like, it's funny for those of you who have watched Silicon Valley, there's this one guy, and I'm horrible with names. So one of the employees of the company of Pied Piper got recruited to come to Huli, and he goes to get his assignment on the first day, and they're like, yeah, here's your desk. And then he walks up to the roof, and then he's like, wait, what? I don't have a job. And to be honest, that's kind of how I felt with Autotrader. I was like, I don't think I really have a job. Like coming from such fast-paced environments, don't go into a corporate world. I was like, there's nothing to do here, which was a good and a bad thing. Some people may love that. For me,
Was it too slow, just slow paced?
Yeah. But great, huge shout out to Cox Automotive. I think they're an incredible company. But I think that was the time where the entire time I had been building my magnetic marketing business and then also climbing the corporate ladder, and the amount of income I made from my entrepreneurial efforts and my corporate ladder efforts just kept on going like this, and never really made sense to make the leap and give up a double income. And so by the time I was at Autotrader, I had a full team of people, a lot of people internationally, just kind of helping me manage the day-to-day with my current clients. And
wow. So all this time while you're doing these different jobs, you are doing your work on the side, and there wasn't any conflict and interest in you doing that?
Yeah. So I stayed away from automotive. Most of the business that I had was actually in ortho and dental. And then, so that kept me afloat. That was my second client ever. And that was a client that started with like 5 locations, and then now they have about 40 locations. And then we just recently stopped working with them during COVID. They were just cutting costs and decided to bring in marketing in-house, but huge growth story with them too. So yeah. Now, so one of those stints was working at a Mercedes-Benz dealerships. What was it like working? Is there a different experience working in-house, so to speak, working for a car dealership versus being an agency outside working for the car dealership, or is it fundamentally the same? Yeah, no, night and day difference. It was, they didn't even know what marketing was. I was the IT guy. So if the Wi-Fi broke, they also called me. And but it was good. It was part of a larger automotive group that had 80 plus dealerships at the time, and that was their most profitable source. So they wanted to hire in-house marketing manager first. The really, really cool thing was this was a little bit more of a fake it till you make it, because all I knew was paid search and display advertising at that time. Now I had to learn the whole realm of what marketing is. I had to learn the third-party listing providers like CarGurus, Autotrader. I had to learn online reputation management, website management, SEO. And so I just watched a lot of videos, attended a lot of webinars, called a lot of vendors. I tried to receive, I felt like that was my trick. I tried to receive as many sales pitches as possible of vendors trying to pitch me stuff. And so that way I could just learn what they're doing. And so that was really, really interesting. But then there wasn't really too much growth opportunity, really. It kind of just stopped there.
It is interesting how much car dealerships have evolved in their approach to the internet. I mean, I remember shopping for a car like in the mid 2000s or earlier, and there was, it was like the website was just like, would have maybe have their phone number on there. If you're lucky, you send an email. You're lucky if you receive a response, and from that point going forward from, the 2010s to today, they've just done a better job of being smart about that. So it's amazing to me that you were working for a Mercedes-Benz dealership in around 2013, 2014, and that they were not organized at that late date, that they still were kind of disorganized about it.
Yeah, no, actually, surprisingly, to this day, Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, those types of brands still don't really get marketing too much because they don't have to.
Because they're legacy brands. They've been around forever. They have a reputation. Yeah. Yeah.
And so for T3 marketing, our core focus has been mainly the mainstream brands that don't have a lot of brand recognition. Because if even in mainstream, if you go to Toyota and Honda, they're like, we don't really need you. But if you go to Hyundai and Mitsubishi and Kia and Mazda, those are the ones that surprisingly nobody knows, but those are the ones who are spending the most and have to try the hardest.
Got it. They don't have the brand equity, as much brand equity.
Yeah.
Now, what about as a niche? Is it hard for you because, I mean, there aren't that many dealerships out there? I mean, think of any city. Sometimes a city has, I don't know how many dealerships they have, but 10, 15 maybe, Is that a challenge?
Honestly, I think it's a lot less of a challenge. I guess it has its pros and cons because we pursued dental and ortho for a while as well. And when you go into dental and ortho, there are a lot less agency competitors that just have that specific niche. So if you take the amount of agencies compared to the amount of offices there are, your chances are a lot better. And then within automotive, there is a lot of companies that I feel like try to pursue automotive dealers' marketing budgets. And there's a finite number. And so, technically there's hundreds of thousands if you go into pre-owned dealerships, but for us, we're mainly just, about 95%, we're just focused on franchise car dealerships. And with that, there's probably about 19,000. The one thing that I really like about it though, is it seems like I like the idea of this finite target audience because we have a CRM that we have pretty much, we feel like every single car dealership, and it's pretty easy to get some VAs to just make sure that the contact data is always updated. So it feels a little bit more achievable, really.
And because you're not geographically constrained, you're anyone nationwide or worldwide, I imagine.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then do you only represent? Do you have to limit yourself, like, or is it big? Geographically, do you have to limit yourself? Like, say, like you'll only represent one Hyundai dealership in a city?
Yeah, so we do we make it seem like we do it for the dealer, but the reality is a lot of times we do it for ourselves just because of the fact that our marketing works, but it works less if two dealerships in the same area are doing the same exact things because we're going to have the same ad copies, we're going to have the same nail pieces, everything
against
the market.
Driving up your costs and making it harder for them to get leads if you're bidding against yourself.
Yeah. So the way that we approach it is we go into, let's say it's a Honda dealership. We'll go in, find a Honda dealership.com, basically go to Honda dealer locator, search in their zip code and say, hey, we won't work with the top depending on the area, 3 to 5 people that show up on that list.
Got it. And so explain to me your business now. You have T3 Marketing, OptiAuto. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so T3 Marketing is a performance marketing agency. We have a dealer framework or a marketing framework that helps dealers just sort of optimize the car demand. So that is increasing car demand. So actually really creating the demand for their vehicles, capturing the demand that already exists and or the demand that they created, and then retaining that demand once somebody actually interacts with their brand or their dealership and just doesn't actually purchase. So we have a whole slew of solutions that just really work. And then OptiAuto was or is a website provider for car dealerships. So we found, working with so many different car dealerships and so many people's websites, we found that many of them were outdated, they were always broken, they were sluggish, and we wanted to just optimize automotive dealerships. And so the idea there was that we're really going to focus on UI, UX design, which we felt like nobody in the market was. They were focused on just like the functionality of how search works. So really trying to take that Google and Apple approach. So when starting, we really focused on material design and human interface design, which are Apple and Google's design frameworks that they publish publicly. So it was like a cheat sheet for us. And so we just took everything that they do and then moved that into dealership websites. And then we stand by, this is probably our biggest thing that I feel like sets us apart, is not only are the websites designed properly from a UI, UX standpoint, but then our promise is that we'll never let your website go outdated. And so what we see a lot of times is somebody signs up with a website provider, and then 3 years later, that website looks outdated. Maybe even in many cases, 1 year later, that website looks a little outdated. So, and then the company says, okay, well, I'll charge you to sign up for like the latest design that we have. For us, we're trying to make micro tweaks. And so we actually compare that a little bit to Tesla or really software. And then Tesla has brought it into like a physical space, which is really cool. You take software and you say, okay, well, if I'm using Gmail's not going to just let me use this version of Gmail for the next 3 years. They're going to constantly make small tweaks. They're always making updates. And same with Tesla. Tesla's said, okay, that needs to come to the automotive sector too. So we can't change out your battery right now, or we can't change out your tires, but we're going to change how the car works. And you guys are going to get every single update as it comes out. So we wanted to take that type of software approach and apply that to websites and say, look, we're going to constantly be following any sort of design trends. And when a button, like I think one of the more recent big things is material design was built on shadows. And so really, really thick shadows. And then they've pretty much gotten rid of most of the shadows. And so for us, we had to kind of focus on how do we remove those shadows? How do we more simplify the buttons and not make them so like fun? So those are just one example of kind of a design trend that's happened in the last year. So
yeah. We're recording this in August of 2021. And what was the experience like for you as the pandemic hit? Car sale, I think there was a period of time where people weren't buying cars. And then, there's all those weird shifts that have happened over the last year. Then people were doing anything that was local and close. So people weren't traveling long distances, but they were Airbnb. They're, renting Airbnbs and VRBOs close to home, and same thing with cars. And then now you hear these crazy stories. My parents just went on vacation to Maine and they couldn't get a car because all the rental companies had sold off their fleets, and then used car market has gone crazy. So the car market has just had this kind of strange ripple effect over the last 18 months. From your perspective, what has it been like during the pandemic?
It's been an experience, that's for sure. So I think right when it hits, FUD set in and everybody was just scared and fearful and didn't really know exactly what to expect. And so I think from a revenue standpoint, our business got hit really hard, but only for about 2 months. And then dealerships fought to become an essential industry. And then they started coming back in that sense, where they would start to come back. I would also say dealerships are, I kind of compare them to blue collar types of people. They have blue collar personalities. And so they're not really following the rules most of the time. So the ones, even in the states that they're supposed to be closed, they're like, I'm not going to close my doors. Like, no, I'm just going to, if somebody shows up, I'm going to be here to sell them a car.
Yeah.
So luckily our business came back pretty quickly, I felt like. I think we were really blessed for that. But what I will say is our business came fully back, but at a lower level. And so we had all the same clients, but everybody was spending a lot less. And so we had to really figure out how to reset our business. I think also what we did is we just focused on something completely different, where before we were focused on bringing them car shoppers, and we still were, but now we're focused on making sure that we are a communication company. And I think that's what we kind of realized is all along we've been a communication company. We're communicating to consumers what the dealership's message is, and most of the time it's selling cars. Now it's focused on COVID protocols and trying to figure out, okay, we're still selling cars, and so making sure that we are kind of just assisting them with whatever they needed.
Interesting. So when you say COVID protocols, you mean like kind of explaining in your advertising copy that it's safe to come to the dealership and that you're using COVID protocols so that it's clean inside and sanitized inside the vehicles, that sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. That thing. We had lots of things with pictures of people spraying the cars with, this like sanitizer stuff. And then also in addition to that, dealers started going to, or at least offering to go to the consumer's house more. So then we would say, look, we'll bring the car. You pick the car online. We'll bring it to you. We can test drive from your home, and then we'll purchase your car straight right in your driveway or your living room. So just trying to communicate those messages. So consumers don't feel like, okay, I have to go into the dealership if I really want something.
And here's where it gets kind of interesting, kind of the line between what is marketing and what is really kind of business strategy. Did you find yourself kind of getting into a role of advising the clients that, this is what the market wants? For example, they're searching for COVID safe dealership or, those sorts of terms. And saying to them, you need to have remote delivery. You need to have like virtual tours inside of the car so they don't have to come down to the dealership to check it out. Did you find yourself moving into that kind of role?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're always a little bit in that role. We're always trying to teach the dealership how to sell, how to take that internet consumer that's not they call them showroom ups or phone ups, basically people that are coming directly to them just organically. And so I think we're constantly doing that. I think the big thing from a business strategy point that changed was we learned which clients of ours were fighters and which ones were just kind of accepting the new norm of shutting down. And so then our job was to persuade them and say, look, we're seeing this work. Like we're having clients that are still breaking records in terms of car sales, the ones that still have their marketing budgets flowing. And at that point in time, that was kind of the hack is, if you are a GMC dealership that has 5 dealerships or 5 GMC dealerships around you, most likely 3 out of those 5 has said, okay, I'm going to shut down. So now you have one competitor or no competitors. So those people who just kept it business as normal really, really succeeded. And then it was our job to communicate that to the clients that just felt like, oh, I didn't know I was allowed to do that, or I'm okay to do that. And
that's where the niching is incredibly valuable because you have such visibility across an industry, what's working for other dealerships and other markets, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times our clients probably see even more value many times and just saying, hey, whoever they're talking to at our company, what are you guys seeing? And because we're really there, in many cases, their only outlet to see more people in the industry. So it's a good communicator or kind of liaison that way too.
Now, I'm a big fan of peer relationships, participating in different communities with other founders and people who kind of walk in the same walk as you at the same time. And you've been active in EO, first in Georgia, and now you live in Colorado. Talk a little bit about what that involvement has meant for you, especially going through these kind of roller coaster times over the last 18 months or so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been it's been a lifesaver, life tube, whatever those are.
Lifeline, lifesaver, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it has definitely kept us afloat. So my first community that I joined is called YC, Young Entrepreneurs Council. That has been incredible. That is the majority of the value in there is it's this Facebook group that essentially you can ask the most difficult questions and you'll get a bajillion answers. Then I expanded and got to a marketing agency specific one. That's Jason Swank's Digital Agency Mastermind. That's been incredible. And then now EO, which is like the flagship organization for entrepreneurs. And all of those have really helped me surround myself with like-minded people, and which not only helps you learn, but also helps you become more self-aware because you see that all these people have this common characteristic or a bunch of common characteristics. And then it's specifically during the pandemic, having these communities and having people freaking out and struggling and figuring it out. It was like, okay, you're naturally going to try to find the solution. But many times I didn't even have to really try to find the solution. I didn't have to dig super deep because everybody is so open and welcome to just sharing. I would hear people saying, oh, I just got my PPP loan. Or, I know at this time, nobody knew where to apply for PPP and which company to do it for. EO had constant webinars of everything that was more up to date. I know in the Jason Swank group, people were posting in Slack, I just applied with Cabbage or PayPal, and they were actually the quickest, while other people were applying at their local credit union thinking that they were going to be quicker. And so just kind of like learning things that you would never have the ability to really learn otherwise.
Yeah, it's great being parts of those types of communities. Jason does a wonderful job with his group. I know we're almost out of time. I want to ask my gratitude question, which is, I'm a big fan of gratitude over here. When you look around at your peers and your contemporaries, however you want to define that, it could be other members of EO or Jason's group or YEC or clients of yours or strategic partners or referrals. Who out there do you want to acknowledge? Who do you respect and admire the work that they're doing?
Yeah, there's so many people. I feel like that it's definitely a difficult question because I think so many people's names come to mind, and the accumulation of people has really impacted. I think I would go back to. I'm going to name one person, but really focusing back on the community. I notice, I find myself doing this a lot of times. Somebody asks a question, and I'll spend 5 minutes just to write up a 200-word response. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me and has just completely changed my life. So I would say that all the communities that we just mentioned. And then I would also say a huge shout out to one of my favorite clients of ours of T3 Marketing. His name is Matt McBrayer. He owns a few dealerships in the Baton Rouge area. And during this time, he has said so many times, he was like, I should lower my marketing budget, but I'm not going to because you guys are my partner. You guys have been loyal to me. I don't want to be non-loyal to you. And that has just been a game changer and really helped be our crutch in a way sometimes throughout this, and just another way to make sure that we're not going down completely or, in those really tough months. Not only did we get hit by COVID, but then we got hit with a second wave just recently. With inventory shortages. So car dealerships, the first time ever, are in a seller's market where they don't have to spend a dime on advertising to really sell a vehicle. And clients like those, I could list off a handful that just said, look, no, we're going to stick with you, not decrease the marketing budget, not because it's what's best for their business, but what's best for, us, they feel like. So their generosity has definitely helped us get through COVID.
That's great, Jon. Jon, where can people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to LinkedIn, look at me at Jon Bast, or also T3 Marketing, which is t3marketing.com, or OptiAuto, which is optiauto.net.
All right.
To find out more about our businesses.
Excellent, Jon. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Jon.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with Jon Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.